Hello, are you eagerly awaiting the beginning of the new Bible study? So am I. You eagerly awaiting to find out what it is? So am I. Yeah. No, I'm only joking. I thought I'd do something a little bit different this time after spending, it was over 20 weeks or 20 sessions on the Ephesians Bible study. I thought this time what I would do is go into the Old Testament, take a book of the Bible, which is going to be Genesis, and rather than do a detailed Bible study, I want to get an overview of the book and really get us thinking and then about some of the different people in the book. And then, having got the overview, I'm just to give us some idea of some of the possible themes that we could pull out of that, and then look at the key characters in the book. And again, not go into lots and lots of detail, but I'm going to pick one or two of my favorite things, or the challenging things, or maybe the familiar things from different characters in the book of Genesis. Because here's the thing. Often when we do Bible study in maybe church, or a series in the church, or even in our own reading, we can end up dotting around from here and there. And we might eventually read the whole book of Genesis or another book of the Bible, but we end up with bits and pieces, and sometimes it can be difficult to put together the bigger picture. So my aim is to help us and give us some tools to get hold of the bigger picture, and then go into some of the detail afterwards. Because I wonder if I was to ask you what the key people or key themes or that you would find in Genesis, I'd probably find that like some of you, you get almost all of them, if not all of them. But for others, you just wouldn't quite be sure which characters are in there. And I remember when I first started doing little exercises like this and studying the Bible like this, that it would often be a surprise to me where people that I was very familiar with, I suddenly knew how they came into that bigger context. So to do this effectively, you're going to have to do a little bit of homework along the way. So you'll be pleased that the groups, the studies are going to be spread out again over the Tuesdays and Thursdays again. But if you get a bit of time, then doing that little bit of work yourself will help to bed in some of the things that I'm going to say, and will give you a surprising amount of insight and knowledge and understanding of the Bible in a really quick time. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, which we'll do today, is very simply teach you how to read the whole of Genesis in, let's say, 20 minutes. You think, well, Genesis, if you don't know, has got 50 chapters in, so reading Genesis in 20 minutes is a bit of a challenge, particularly if you have to write anything down. And I did it in about 20 minutes and wrote things down. But here's the thing, and this is a little thing you can use not just in Genesis, but any book of the Bible, is what I did was I found a version of the Bible, in this case the NIV Bible, with headings. You see, headings are meant to give you an idea of what's in the book. So what better way of getting an idea of what's in the book by reading the headings? So if you go through Genesis and read the headings, it will, even with writing them down, take you about 20 minutes, maybe less than that if you don't write them down. And what you'll find is that by doing that, you start to get an overview picture, and writing it down really does help in that. And if you want to take that theme forward a little bit further, what you can do is then you go back and not just read the chapter heading, but if you read the first paragraph or just the first few lines, you'll get a really good idea of, if you like, in an overview form of the book of Genesis. And for me personally, it's worked really, really well. So I'm just going to give you an idea from Genesis, the sort of things that would come out. So if you looked at Genesis 1 is the beginning. Genesis 2 is Adam and Eve. Genesis 3 is the fall. Genesis 4 is Cain and Abel. And then it goes on, Genesis 5 is a genealogy. So there you are. You've got that bit around creation and the fall, a nice little bundle together. So there you are. That's already, that covers the first really 4 chapters, then the genealogy in chapter 5. And then 6 to 8 is all about Noah and the flood. And then if you read the chapter headings, chapter 9, it's really interesting. And you'll start to pick out key words. So the heading there is God's covenant with Noah. So then it tips over into another change. You've got Table of Nations, and then you've got Tower of Babel in chapter 11. That just towards the end touches on, he's not known as Abraham at this point, he's known as Abram. And so you'd pick up that. If you follow through, and I really haven't got time to read all the chapter headings, I'm only aiming to give you an idea here. If you start to work through, you realize that now the story of Abraham, or Abraham as he's initially known, is coming to the fore, not the fall. And a couple of things you might pick out, because this word covenant starts to appear. Chapter 15, God forms a covenant with Abraham. In chapter 17, a couple of chapters later, you've got the covenant of circumcision. And you keep reading through, and then Isaac turns up in chapter 21, and Abraham's life, it carries on a bit further into chapter 26, 27, around there. And really, so you've got Abraham, you've got Isaac, and then Jacob makes a bit of an appearance as well at that point. And Jacob, he picks up on the verse in chapter, keep saying verse, it's chapter 27, and flows through until eventually you get Joseph appearing around chapter 37. And Jacob is there to the end, which is chapter 50, but you get the whole story of Joseph emerging. So I've not gone through all the headings there, but you can see how quickly you start to get this picture building up, and you start to realize who are the key characters here. And when you've got that framework, and it is something I've actually done through the whole of the Old Testament because of the benefit that I found in it. And when people start referring, or you hear something read from the Bible, it allows you to start getting a better context, a better idea. How does this fit together? It actually helps you to discover where something is in the Bible. For me, when I remember I first did this little thing years ago, and I was quite surprised that there was Joseph, there was Abraham, all in the same book of the Bible. And if you were to carry it on, the next book is Exodus, and you find that Moses emerges, and he becomes the major character for the first 20 chapters of Exodus, and then the second part you'll find the 10 Commandments being given, chapter 20 onwards. And I think this framework is invaluable and really, really can help us in that bigger picture of understanding the Bible. So here, out of this, I am giving you some homework, but the homework will be to read the chapter headings and then proudly declare, I've read the whole of Genesis since Tuesday, if you're watching this live, and see what it starts to put in place for you. So if I was to go back over those headings that I've given you there, you see, I'd be saying, okay, the first 5 chapters are all about the beginning. It's the creation story. It's Adam and Eve. It's the fall. That's the picture we've got there. Then we go into Noah from really chapter 6 through to end of chapter 11. Abraham, he appears towards the end of chapter 11. Well, it's his father Terah that appears. Great name for a dad, isn't it? And you see he appears, and you can then follow through Abraham's life, and then you find Jacob emerging, part way through there. Well, I missed out Isaac, didn't I? So Abraham, Isaac, and Isaac is a much smaller bit, really. And you've got Jacob and the whole story of Joseph, coming up from about chapter 37 onwards. And you realise we've now got some very neat places where we can start to build from. Now, as you do it, I picked out a key word there. Just have a look and see how many times covenant appears. Then, when you're going through, just have a look. What's the feel about this? And you realize that right from Genesis, now here, this isn't a detailed Bible study, but you start to get a feel of the heart of the Father towards these people, but towards people. And you realize right from the beginning, God is after relationship. Adam and Eve, it was about relationship. And then it's like time and time again, we see through the Bible where the genealogy is put together. It's important to God, those family relationships that go through generations. You get even to the life of Jesus. You start at the beginning of Matthew's gospel. What's in the beginning there? It's genealogies. How does Jesus fit again in Luke's gospel? You see, so genealogies, they can be a bit dull, but they're also contain things that are important relationally. And in doing this study, do you cover everyone? No. Are there characters that maybe when I go through in a bit more detail, I'll pull out? Yes. Yeah. But that initial feel, I think, is a really, really good start. So look out for relationship, how that is so important. Some key themes appear very early on. You might pick up Joseph forgiving his brothers. Forgiveness is in the heart of the gospel. God's restoration is clear. It's not that God left mankind, but right from the fall, you got this theme of restoration. And you'll notice things like covenant, as I've mentioned, come up time and time again. You'll notice things like, Abraham, he was known as Abram to start with, and then after the birth of Isaac, he starts being called in the Bible Abraham, father of many nations. So there's lots of little tracks and paths, but can I encourage you this week, if you get a few minutes, read the headings, get some baseline knowledge if you haven't already got it. If you have, then just make sure it's strong. I've done that exercise today, and it's a great reminder. And what you find when you've got something like that as time goes on, you might go back and look, and it's not the main characters you look at, but as it is throughout the whole Bible, you've as well as the main guys, you've got these, in acting, it's almost, they call it a cameo appearance, people that appear for a few moments, a few lines, but they carry a significance. If you've got a minute, look up Enoch and look around him, and he doesn't appear for very long, but he's even mentioned in the New Testament. So there has to be some significant things that we can learn from that. So hopefully you've enjoyed my first little step into Genesis, and hopefully it triggers some thinking in you. And my prayer at the end of this Bible study is that we'll have gained an overview, and then gained some detail about some of the key characters. I'm not going to spend 10 weeks on this study, but I say that, but that's not my intention. My intention is to go through relatively quickly, that at the end of it, you know that you've come away with a better knowledge of one book of the Bible. And then we'll see where we go from there. I might end up finding that we really like one of the characters, and we'll follow that through in more details, but we'll see. Okay, have a great day, and look forward to you joining me on Thursday.